It's funny how life can change in an instant. One moment, you're a regular 15-year-old girl, navigating the ups and downs of teenage life, and the next, you're standing in a courtroom, revealing secrets that you never thought would come to light. This is my story, and it all started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My name is Mia, and I live in a small town with my mom and my stepfather Tom. My mom married Tom when I was 12. At first, he seemed like a great guy. He had a good job, was always polite, and made my mom smile. But as time went on, I noticed things that didn't sit right with me. It was as if he had a mask on, hiding something underneath. It all started the day I found the notebook. I was looking for my math book in the living room when I saw it peeking out from behind the couch. It was old and worn, with a dark cover that looked like it had been through a lot. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled it out. I flipped it open and my heart sank. It was filled with Tom's handwriting, but it wasn't about work or daily life. It was a list of names, numbers, and dates. I couldn't understand it at first, but as I read on, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. These were people he had borrowed money from, and the amounts were staggering. I felt sick. My stepfather was in deep trouble, and I had no idea how serious it was. That night I couldn't sleep. The images of those names and numbers swirled in my mind. I tried to convince myself that maybe it was just a phase or a mistake, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. Tom had always been secretive about his finances, but I never thought it would lead to something like this. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to act normal. I went to school, hung out with my friends, and pretended everything was fine at home. But the weight of what I had discovered was like a heavy stone in my chest. I started noticing more things. How Tom would receive late-night phone calls, the way he would glance at his phone nervously when my mom walked into the room, and the tension that seemed to hang in the air whenever he was around. Then one evening, everything changed. I was sitting at the kitchen table, working on my homework, when I heard raised voices coming from the living room. I got up to listen. It was my mom and Tom arguing. I couldn't make out all the words, but I heard enough to know it was serious. My mom was crying, and Tom was shouting. "Why can't you just understand? I'm trying to protect us," he yelled. Protect? From what? I felt a mix of anger and fear. I knew I had to do something, but what? I was just a kid. I didn't have the power to confront him. Instead, I decided to continue gathering evidence. I began sneaking around, trying to find more information about Tom's hidden life. I started looking through his things when he wasn't home. I found more notebooks filled with names, but this time there were threats written alongside them. "Pay up or else" was a phrase that haunted me. I could feel my heart racing every time I found a new piece of the puzzle. Tom wasn't just in debt. He was in over his head with dangerous people. One day, while searching through his dresser, I found a gun. It was tucked away in a hidden compartment. I froze, fear flooding my veins. I couldn't believe it. My stepfather was hiding a gun in our home? What was he doing? My mind raced with possibilities, and none of them were good. I kept the notebook and the information to myself, but I felt like I was sitting on a ticking time bomb. I knew I had to tell my mom, but I was terrified of how she would react. Would she believe me? Would she confront him? Would it put her in danger? Finally, after weeks of torment, I decided I couldn't hold it in any longer. I couldn't let my mom stay with someone who was capable of such dangerous things. One night, after dinner, I took a deep breath and sat her down. "Mom, I need to talk to you about Tom," I said, my voice trembling. She looked at me, confused. "What about him, Mia?" I hesitated, the words stuck in my throat. "I found something about his finances, and it's bad, really bad." Her expression shifted from confusion to concern. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, recalling all those nights of sleepless worry. "I found a notebook. He's in debt, Mom. He owes money to people, and there are threats, there's even a gun." Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she was going to faint. "What? No, that can't be true. Tom would never." "He's not who you think he is," I pleaded. "He's hiding something, I swear. I'm not making this up." Tears filled her eyes, and my heart broke for her. I knew how much she loved him, and I could see the conflict in her mind. "Mia, you need to be careful. This is serious." "I know, Mom, but we can't just ignore it. We need to do something before it's too late." That night, We talked for hours. I showed her the notebook, the lists, everything I had found. She was shocked, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. My mom's belief in Tom crumbled before my eyes, replaced by fear and confusion. "I can't believe this," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "How could I have been so blind?" "We need to go to the police," I insisted. "We can't let him hurt us or anyone else." After much hesitation, she finally agreed. The next day we went to the police station. I was terrified. I had never been to a police station before, but I knew it was the right thing to do. As we sat in the small room, waiting for an officer to come and hear our story, I felt a mix of fear and relief. I was finally doing something. I was no longer just a bystander in my own life. When the officer arrived, I felt a rush of emotions. I explained everything: the notebook, the threats, the gun. The officer listened intently, taking notes. I could see the concern in his eyes. After what felt like hours, he assured us they would look into it. "You did the right thing by coming forward. It's important to stay safe. We'll take it from here." As we left the station, I felt a sense of weight lifted off my shoulders. But little did I know, things were about to get much worse. That evening, Tom came home late. I watched as my mom greeted him with a forced smile. My heart raced as I imagined what would happen when he found out we had gone to the police. I could see the tension building, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it erupted. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I heard my mom and Tom arguing again. This time, it was worse than ever. The anger in Tom's voice sent chills down my spine. I could hear things being thrown, and I felt helpless. Just as I was about to call for my mom, I heard a loud crash followed by a scream. My heart dropped. I bolted out of bed and ran to the living room. When I got there, I saw the scene that would haunt me forever. Tom was standing over my mom, his face twisted in rage, and she was on the floor, clutching her arm. "Get away from her," I screamed, my voice trembling with fear. He turned to me, his eyes filled with fury. "You little brat. You don't know what you're talking about." I felt a surge of bravery. "You're a monster. You've been lying to us." "Enough," he shouted, taking a step toward me. "You think you can just ruin my life? You have no idea who you're messing with." In that moment, I knew I had to protect my mom. I rushed to her side, wrapping my arms around her. "Mom, we need to go. Now." Tom laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "You think you can just leave? You're not going anywhere." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from the police. They were on their way. I felt a glimmer of hope, but I couldn't let Tom know. "Mom, we have to act normal," I whispered. "The police are coming." Tom must have sensed something because his expression changed. "What did you do?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Nothing." I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're just talking." But the tension in the room was palpable. I knew I had to stall him until help arrived. "Tom, please," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Let's just talk this through," he sneered, taking another step toward us. "You think I'm scared of the police? I'll make sure you regret this." And then, just as I was about to lose all hope, there was a loud knock at the door. Relief washed over me, but Tom's face twisted in anger. "Stay back," he shouted, grabbing my mom's arm. The door burst open, and officers flooded into the room. "Police, hands in the air." Tom's grip on my mom loosened as he turned to face the officers. In that moment, I felt a rush of adrenaline. "Get away from her," I yelled, and the officers rushed forward, grabbing Tom and pulling him away from my mom. She collapsed to the floor, and I rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "I'm fine, just shaken," she replied, tears streaming down her face. As the officers secured Tom, I watched in disbelief. The man who I had once called my stepfather was now being taken away in handcuffs. The judge's reaction during the hearings was something I'll never forget. When I testified, I felt so small, but I also felt strong. I spoke about everything I had seen, the notebooks, the gun, the threats. It was scary, but I knew I had to do it for my mom, for us. The judge listened intently, his expression serious. When it was over, he looked at Tom with disbelief. "You've put your family at risk for your own greed. You are a danger to them and to society." I felt a sense of justice wash over me. Tom was sentenced to several years in prison, and I knew my mom and I would finally be safe. Life wasn't easy after that. My mom and I had to rebuild our lives, but we did it together. We went to therapy, learned to trust again, and slowly began to heal. I learned that sometimes the people we love can hurt us the most, but it's important to speak out and seek help. I realized that I was stronger than I had ever known, and I would always fight for what was right. In the end, I was no longer just a girl who felt trapped in her own life. I was Mia, a survivor, and I would never let anyone silence me again. Through the darkness, I found my voice. And that voice was powerful enough to expose the hidden life of a man who thought he could control everything, including us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on more heartwarming and emotional tales like this one. Like this video if it touched your heart, and feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what you think about the story. And don't forget to share it with your friends and family, because good stories are meant to be shared. Thank you for watching.